This is Ben Proco with Trifit-XT, and I was going to go through some course tips for the Memorial Hermann Ironman Texas. This is for 2023. So I've done Ironman Texas myself 11 times, and my time range has been from 9:45 to 15:30. So I've been all over the place, had different levels of fitness, sometimes where I put 15 hours a week in on just the bike, and then times where I've been between just 3 and 5 hours a week on the bike, just using a bike, for example, or running 60 miles a week versus right now I'm only around 6 miles a week. So kind of been all over the place on that. I'm a 19-time Ironman finisher, coached it's probably close to the hundreds now to Ironman finishes, and I think I've done like 30 70.3s. I just want to note that 9:45 time was the 2016 race, which had pretty epic conditions and a little bit shorter bike course. I probably would have been somewhere between 10:15, 10:30, which kind of stinks because that was one of my best fitness years. So let's go ahead and dive into the race course. All right, swim start. This is actually that 2016 swim start. One of the things I like to do on the swim start, one, it's a walk. It's a long walk from transition to get there. So just plan for that. They'll probably. I'm going to try to cover things that might not be covered as much in other talks or athlete briefings, but I will still cover some of the similar things. But with that long walk, you're going to go over a bridge, which will go over the lake. And one of the things I like to do is if the sun is starting to come up or you're starting to be able to see, I like to check out, like look to the left and see where that turn buoy is, because you can't see it on the swim start. This swim start actually looks like it's kind of marked from back when the race was a mass start versus a rolling start, which mass starts, they don't really do them anymore, but man, those were all sorts of craziness. Being a competitor, I did like the mass start, kind of knowing where you were, but these races have gotten even bigger, and it's just it just doesn't feel that safe doing that, especially for any middle of the pack swimmer. It'd be kind of nice if they did a hybrid between the two, like, hey, those who want to do a mass start and compete for Kona slots, given that opportunity, and then do a rolling start for everyone else. But I don't know, maybe that's something they'll consider in the future, but I kind of like to get the best of both worlds. But with that being said, when you enter, you really can't see this turn buoy, and I'll mention this later. This map is like not even close to being in scale. So if you take a look, you can kind of get an idea where that might be on the bridge. Me personally, I like to kind of aim for this point right here. I really don't follow the buoy line, and part of that's because of I breathe on the left when I'm racing, so I like to protect my right side, which is my blind side, and I'll kind of I'll keep most of the competitors when I can to my left because that's what I can see. But it works out well for this one because I can hit right close to this peninsula, and then right as I come by, you can then see that turn buoy. And with doing that, I rarely touch anyone. I think last year I went pretty much from this point all the way to here without touching a single body on the swim. And then you make the turn. Will be a little bit of congestion on the corners. And then what they've been doing here, it's not really on this map, and this is a map just pulled straight from the website right now, is there's a spot where you kind of have to either go through or a buoy that you have to go around so you don't cut this corner super tight. And then, sorry, that's my notes there, checking buoys on the bridge. And we talked about the seating. This canal, they made this look like it's almost as wide as here, and it's nowhere close. If you check the satellite maps, it's much more narrow. I've honestly never had an issue in the canal being too packed or anything. And again, I do the same thing. I'll swim on the right side here so I can keep everyone to my left. And I do that every year. At first, I didn't realize why I was doing it. First couple years, I noticed on my Garmin, hey, I'm always swimming to the right. And then it's just naturally where I gravitate to, just to protect my my blind side, essentially, of breathing, or where I'm not breathing. But I say there's going to be a lot of other things on the swim course, and if there's any questions, of course, if you kind of hit me up. This will be on YouTube, but if you look on like Facebook where I post, that's a little bit easier for me to answer any questions I have to that. And a big thing, again, this map is not to scale, but the big thing you can check out is when you get on that bridge, look where that turn buoy is, because otherwise it kind of seems like you're just mindlessly following these until you get around here. Also, I forgot to mention, when you're coming back this way, it's going to be very hard to see where these turn buoys are. I recommend, once you make this turn, swim a little bit, get about 50 yards in, going generally towards this next buoy, try to, and then really take inventory, sight a few times as far down here as you can. And if you look this way, you'll probably see some buildings. I haven't been to the woodlands in a little while right now. Like, it's been about a year. There might still be like some construction cranes or something in that area. Look for those, because that's going to be a lot easier when you sight than trying to find some buoy that's way down here. So take inventory around here and kind of find what's in your path that's a lot higher up, and that'll help you out going this direction. Going out this way, it's a little bit more difficult because there's pretty much only Woodlands Parkway, but there are a few things that you could sight off of other than the turn buoy. But this way can get a little bit more difficult, and I like to find something that's high up on here. And then the canal, if you get off swimming on there, good luck. There's not much to get off on that way. It's pretty much a straight shot. And that's it for the swim. Water temp. It's usually wetsuit legal, it being in April. The biggest thing is going to come down to the last 3 to 5 days. Look at what the water temperature is about 3 to 5 days out, and then look at the weather. I'll never say with 100, but with a high 90% certainty, say it would be wetsuit optional. Should be under 84 degrees. But, crazier things have happened. Maybe we get like a whole bunch of 90-degree days all of a sudden. Yeah, I mean, you never know. April is one of the most sporadic months that we have. But just look at those days. You can probably get an idea. If it's sitting around like, 74 and you have some cool evenings and it's not getting crazy warm, you're probably good. But it'll easily swing a couple degrees in any given day, just that it's a shallow lake. All right, let's go to the bike. This is kind of the big one. I feel like this is really the make or break on your race. The swim is going to be the swim. Kind of what you've put into it is what you're going to get out of it training-wise. So, but the bike is where I can see the most mistakes made, because what you do on that bike is going to affect your run. So I like to focus on this especially. So weather history. First year it was on the Hardy Toll Road. 2011 through 15 it was through National Forest, which was really awesome. 2016 had a really crazy course. Oddly, I liked it just because it kind of you'd be going through like some neighborhood and then pop up and I'd be like, oh, I know where I'm at. But in 2017 they started with this Hardy Toll Road course, and when we normally have a south-southeast wind, we had a 15-mile-an-hour north-northwest wind. I would give the odds of having a north-northwest wind somewhere between 10 and 20%, with a 10% chance that it could be a strong north wind. And what that's going to do is on these out and backs, that's going to give you a headwind the last 20 to 30 miles. So this is not, while this is like a drier weather, this will give you a nice day generally. It usually, you're going to have to be smart how you pace yourself, because you're going to be going out with a tailwind, but then having to fight that headwind back. 2018, we had those perfect conditions where you saw like pelotons on the bike course. There was virtually no wind, and it was a great day, a fun day of racing, but there was unfortunately a lot of people taking advantage of the nice conditions. 2019, we came with kind of our normal weather. Again, you might get these back to 2018. You got about a 10% chance that you're going to get a weather day like that. 10 to 20% chance, kind of like the north wind. We usually get a north wind, a front comes in, Then it calms down and we have no wind after we get that north wind or a very low wind, kind of when the winds are transitioning. Well, we had a crazy windy day. Going back to 2019, that's probably about a 50 to 70, 80% chance that we're going to have those conditions. There are, just like these top two, there's probably about a 10% chance, 10 to 20% chance we get a very windy day from the south-southeast. And that's where I was seeing people only average, 10 miles an hour going into the wind. And that was making for a very long day. But the nice thing is, once you got to mile roughly 80, you were pretty much blown back the rest of the way. And again, I would much rather have that stronger tailwind going back than that headwind going back for a long time. So that's just the weather history here. Again, kind of plan for anything, but these are kind of the percentages. I say 10 to 20%, 10 to 20. This is the highest odds. This south-southeast wind at a moderate velocity, and then again another 10 to 20 somewhere in here. And you'll probably get a little bit better idea a couple days out from the event. Our temperatures, late April, we can get some low 40s in there if we got one of the fronts blowing through, but usually those days will warm up fairly nice, at least into the 60s, if not the 70s. Right now, we just had a front kind of go through, a light one, and it's like really nice, just a slight north wind, and it's 75 now, and it was, cooler. But we could get, where it's only in the 60s in the morning for the low and getting up into the 90s with some humidity. So April is a very up in the air month as far as weather goes. All right, some bike course tips. Pacing. First 10 to 20. This first 10 right here on Woodlands Parkway, unless you're at the pointy edge of really fast, like seating yourself in the front and sub-hour swimmer, or someone who's over 2 hours seating themselves in the back, everyone else who's in the middle, it's probably going to be crowded on that Woodlands Parkway. Don't let that stress you out. Don't worry about getting super aero for anything at that point. Just let the, swim be the swim. You're going to be passing. This is going to have, 2,000-3,000 people just on this 10-mile stretch. You're going to see tons of bikes. Just be safe, be smart. Make sure you're, following the rules, passing on your left. I like to try to pass. I want to get really close to someone, but like if I'm passing someone, I try to leave room for maybe one other person to get by if they're going a little bit faster, just because there is about that congestion. Be very predictable with what you're doing. And really this first 20 is just, hey, don't do anything that's going to screw up your race. But that's usually pretty crowded. And then it's kind of weird. You do this section, and I always do this, and I'm like, where's the Hardy Toll Road? And it's like, all of a sudden, like, oh, we make this right, and we're on the Hardy Toll Road after this aid station. And this is where you have to be, really take a look at those conditions. One of the biggest things I see is early on, like that last year, I saw people, this is only 20 miles, 25 miles into the race, and they're sitting up on their bike going into a 20 mile an hour headwind. This is where you want to be smart. A lot of people might struggle to do 112 miles in the aero position, and rightfully so. That's difficult. But if you have like where you got a good 80 miles, you can do it. Be smart about what 80 miles you can be in the aero position. When you're going into the wind, really make sure you're in the aero position. And then when you have that tailwind, that's when you want to take your breaks, breaking out of the aero position, maybe staying up. If you got a good tailwind, sit up a little bit longer. Again, be smart with that. And then you do 2 laps here, and then you'll obviously head back. You got about 10 more miles after that. So aero, I just kind of talked a little bit about that, but believe it or not, wind is not always a bad thing. Our normal wind, when I plug it in, what the normal wind would be, which is like, 30-50% of the time, it is a south-southeast wind, and it gradually picks up. What that means is you might be heading out on the bike, going south, and the wind might be 8 miles per hour on average for that lap. But then you turn around, and now it's picked up, and an hour later, now it's at 10 miles an hour, blowing you this way. So now you've actually netted a little bit of speed with there being wind because it's picking up. Then you turn around, and now it's going to be a little bit stronger, might be 12 this way, but then it's 14 coming back this way. So when I throw it into some of the calculators, this course with its normal wind is about 3 minutes faster than if there's absolutely no wind at all. So a south wind, southeast wind that gradually picks up is to your advantage. Plus, it makes taking those aero breaks, gives you a good spot to do that, which is when you have the tailwind. So then you can really plan for, hey, I'm going to take those breaks out of aero position when I have that nice tailwind here. And again, if you can make it 112 miles all aero position, hey, props to you. Just what I've observed in recent years, where I'll see literally 50% of the people out of aero position into the wind. That's something, and even on the first lap. Like, I get it on the second lap, you're 60 miles in, gets a little bit tougher, 70 miles in. But again, plan those out, utilize that aero position where it's most important and most beneficial for you. And look at it, if we do have that southeast wind that gradually picks up, hey, other than the mental aspect of having to work into the wind, from a time standpoint, it could actually be faster than having no wind at all. Hills, overpasses, we have a few of them. They're not long. If you're used to doing Galveston, where it's like just 100% flat, yeah, they might seem like something, but just be smart on them. If there's people going faster than you up the hill, they're probably going too hard, and you're not going to really gain much by going up the hill any faster. Just make sure you monitor your effort. I have a whole video on hill climbing that I'll have in here, and I'll put it on the YouTube link as well, that you can check out, where I talk about how to pace a hill properly. But just use your gears. You don't need anything crazy. Honestly, the worst combination that happens is when you're heading southbound and there's a south wind, and there's a couple overpasses here where, yeah, you're going to have to fight a little bit. You kind of, when you get to the top, when it seems like it's flattening out, it almost gets tougher, just because now that you're starting to get a little bit more of that wind impact. But just to give you an idea, in the average scenario, 10 pounds, if you suddenly just threw 10 pounds of weight on your bike, it would only cost you 2.5 minutes for this race. And 10 pounds is a ton. That's 3, 4, 5 water bottles. So yeah, make sure you throw that extra water bottle on there. Don't sacrifice a pound or two of weight, because in the end, it's not going to matter that much. I mean, divide this out, and you're only talking about like 15 seconds per pound. That's really not that big a deal at this point. So aero is much more important than the weight. And like I said, I talked about the last mile. Just prepare yourself. I think sometimes the hardest part is not pushing the last few miles. You get excited, and really the bike needs to be just setting yourself up for the run. So stay true to your course. Your legs are going to feel a little bit more tired, but again, don't crush yourself to chase after that bike split or anything. Like, you're averaging 19.9 miles per hour. Don't worry if you get to that 20, especially if you're looking for a good time at the race here. If you want to say you have 20, hit 20 mile an hour average, and it might sacrifice your run, and that's all you're going to care about, hey, go. But from just a standpoint, be smart heading into the second transition. And then here's my YouTube link for how to climb video. Again, I'll post that in the comment section or in the description, so you can find that. All right, here's a little joke I just had last year with that 2022 course. How a cassette, has these are your climbing gears, your flat course, and your downhill. Well, last year, the Hardy Toll Road, it was, these were your northbound gears and these were your southbound gears. I said this is especially true for me because I decided just, a couple days before the race, I had some mechanical issues and I didn't want to hunt down anything, so I just ended up riding my mountain bike for the race last year. And yeah, pretty much the whole northbound section I was in this last cog because I can only go 24 miles an hour even in that one. And believe it or not, that's where I got past the most. Going into the wind, even with a mountain bike, I slapped some aero bars on there and was able to, I was able to hang with most of the people on that part. It was just a tailwind running out of gears. And a run course. First thing with this, I say, don't start off too fast. Second thing, don't start off too fast. My wife thought I had a typo on here. This is one of the biggest things. You're going to be excited coming off the bike. You've gone for 5 or 6 or whatever amount of hours seeing things pass by at 20 miles an hour. And what your eyes are going to want to do, it's kind of like that little freeway thing when you go from the freeway to the feeder or access road and you've been going 70, 75, and then you suddenly go 50 and you feel like you're barely going anywhere, but yet you're still going 50 miles an hour, which is fairly fast. That's the same thing that happens here. You're going 20 miles an hour or whatever speed, and now you're suddenly going to be going 6, 7, 8, or whatever your run pace is. Your eyes keep on wanting to see that 20, so you need to really dial in, use your watch, make sure you hold back. There's so many people who come out of T2 saying like, oh man, I was just feeling great. Yeah, you're excited you got done with the bike and you've been used to seeing things flying by. Be smart those first couple miles. You're going to be excited. All that's going to do is, you run that first mile hard, you're going to be walking 3 or 4 more miles at the end because of that first mile, how much that cost you. So be smart. I do like that it's like a downward trend right here at the beginning, kind of, but not like steep. It's just enough to really get you rolling. And then you turn around and you'll see this hill. You'll get to see it when you go by this steep hill. Just to get up to the aid station, it takes you off the waterway into kind of a, parking lot area. I just definitely recommend walking that. And then really the only other hill you get is right here going over the lake. And that's the only other kind of big, there's a couple of small things, but this is the only other big one going over the lake, which you'll see on race morning. And again, this is I've done 33 laps racing around this thing and plus a few training ones. Pretty easy course to, navigate. There's nothing crazy on here. Just kind of take notes where things are. Know again that this map is not 100% to scale from where I remember things are. There's sometimes water stations I see a little bit off of where they're listed on here. Not far, but just like this water station I feel is more like where this arrow is. But again, maybe they're moving it. I don't know. I've seen these things in different spots. The one thing I will note, this is where special needs usually is, unless that's changed. This section right here, if you're someone who's going to be finishing in the dark, make sure you put a light in your special needs. That when you're going through here, it can get really dark. I think they've been putting lights in here and everything along here. It's really cool. One of my favorite sections, and it's one of the few shaded spots, but it gets very, very dark back there. And I definitely recommend a light because you're on a sidewalk and there's times where that sidewalk lip is a couple inches and, you wouldn't want to make your race any more difficult with twisting an ankle. Also, I like to note this because it's the longest section from around this water station all the way through the waterway, which has lots of energy, Hippie Hollow right around here to here is one of the longest stretches you have to go without water. So it's just something to note. I think it's closer to 1.2 miles when I look at it. But I say that's something to note that you're going to go a little while if you're someone who takes a little bit longer per mile and you like to have your hydration. I always make sure I kind of really hydrate at this station or get what I need because I know it's going to be a long trek until I get to this one here. All right, no, that's that right there. Pacing this out, first lap, I feel like that's when you got to really be smart on because I say it's always easy to go out kind of hot on that lap. Second lap, I feel is like that's one of the tougher laps just knowing that you're not that close to the finish, but because you still got another lap and you're right around that middle gray area. That's when, you got to be smart on that lap too. Kind of try to keep going forward, but don't do anything that's going to sabotage. Like if you're feeling great, hey, don't push it at that point either. You want to be smart if you're feeling great. So when you get to that third lap, that you can really start giving it your all. And honestly, I'd wait just a little bit longer on that third lap. Get yourself kind of through here. And then if you're really feeling good, kind of save it for that last 10K. But definitely save it for the third lap, but hold back just a little bit more. And that last 10K is where you can really make up a lot of time. I feel like once you get here, the last 3 miles, lots of energy. The waterway is just amazing once you get on there. So I mentally try to just make it to right around here, and then the rest kind of takes care of itself. And my last one, the special needs, having a light in there. And enjoy the finish. Lots of people racing. Right as I kind of am coming through and I take that turn, after you pass by it and you get to see where you take to the turn to the finish, I kind of take inventory of who's around me. Give people their space. I'm not going to sprint by them. I mean, granted, if you're going for a Kona slot or something like that, yeah, of course, push it all the way to the end. But if you're someone just looking to finish, and definitely not going for make sure I give kind of their people to celebrate their chance at the finish line. A lot of time it's, first time finishers. So I'm not going to go sprint by someone at the very end. I say I just kind of take inventory of where everyone is around me, so they can kind of have that chance on the spot in the spotlight. All right, I really hope you enjoy your day. Again, our coaching company is Trifit-XT. You can find us at Trifit-XT.com. We do coaching. We do testing, both blood lactate, metabolic. We're actually completely booked leading into Ironman Texas. Good thing to have, but that's the reason is because that data is very important to the athletes, where they can see their calorie utilization. We also put on 1 or 2 races a year. We still have 1 race left, which is called the Brick House Triathlon, Duathlon, Aquabike, and Adventure Race, and that's part of the USA Triathlon Gravel Series. It's in Northwest Houston, or just a little bit northwest of Houston, in a town called Navasota, and that's October 21st and 22nd. So if you're looking for something a little bit off the beaten path, gravel is really fun. You still get the power of being on the road, but just a little bit different atmosphere. But yeah, check that out. It's called the Brick House Triathlon. All right, I met my goal here. I was under 30 minutes on this. It's looking like coming right in at 28 minutes. Again, if you have any questions, please reach out to us, especially on Facebook. Check that a little bit more. And hope everyone has a great race.